Hello again. So I haven't done a Berserk analysis video in a while, so I wanted to go ahead and get back at it. As a side, I do these videos by just doing straight shot. I don't have a script or anything like that, so almost all of this is based off of memory. ADHD, horsepower for the win. With that said, what we're going to be covering is just how I think Berserk ending is going to end up going, including some themes that are going to be re-emerging or emerging in the future that are paramount towards how the story is likely going to end. To start things off, we're going to be talking about Moonlight Boy because of the fact that in the future chapters, he's going to be paramount towards how the story is going to end up progressing. And I believe 363, he was with Guts, and I think it was like a dreamscape. I can't tell if it was actually happening or not, but the boy was wearing his armor. It was a cute little moment. Most people just took it as meaning that he wanted to be like Guts, and he was sword fighting him with a little stick and everything. And it was in this moment that Guts was also trying to like see how he is still end up doing as far as like battle prowess. He is having trouble throwing knives and hitting targets now. He's having trouble with the weight of the Dragon Slayer. More things than not are going wrong for Guts than they are going right. As he got close towards his journey towards healing Casca, unfortunately one of the things that started happening was the Berserker armor started taking a huge physical toll on him, to the point of weakening him to the point that if he was to face Griffith seriously, even without the ability to reflect his attacks, Guts really doesn't have a chance, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. I would love to say that Elf, Helm, Guts would be able to challenge even one of the more crafty apostles like the Mask Guy. He would not be able to, though. The reason why is because each and every time, as we said in the last clip, every time that Guts uses the Berserk armor, he gets physically weaker. Even with Elf's healing him, it's still taking a huge toll on his body. One of the things that reasons why I believe that the Moonlight Boy was trying to wear the armor, and this is going to be incredibly important in the future, is because of the fact that he is trying to tell his dad, and Guts doesn't realize he's his son yet, that he is supposed to be inside the armor. He wants to help, or he wants to take the armor himself. And when you actually consider this, it gets kind of crazy. The reason being is because Moonlight Boy is able to overpower the Beast of Darkness, which is within the Berserker armor. This is something that only he has been able to do, and in 367, I believe, it actually ends up being the case where Guts tries to manifest the Berserker armor to attack Griffith, but the Beast of Darkness is nowhere to be found. The reason for that is because Moonlight Boy is the one who is actively preventing it from being used, not Griffith. That actually ties into the maelstrom that was happening during the whole confrontation between Guts and Griffith. The Berserker armor wasn't activating because Moonlight Boy and Griffith were actively fighting each other inside the same body. That's why when the maelstrom was happening, that was the result of the two being at conflict with each other. Griffith intended to take Casca, and Moonlight Boy tried his best to fend him off, but unfortunately all he was able to do was end up shielding Casca so Guts wouldn't instantly hit her, which is something that Griffith actually tried to arrange happening. The entire thing with Griffith even showing up to the island was to eliminate another natural enemy, that being the individual inhabitants of the island. But there's also another thing. He wants to try and attack, if he's able to, Guts. In this instance, the reason why he took the Casca in the first place wasn't just necessarily just to remove her from the situation and make Guts feel powerless, but also to make sure that in the instance of the Moonlight Boy, he's in check, because what Griffith's theory is that if he has a Casca in his kingdom, that'll make Moonlight Boy settle down. And that's a huge part of this entire conversation, and the reason being for that is actually the fact that, as I've said multiple times, Moonlight Boy is stronger than Griffith, in the astral realm, at least. In terms of the physical, it's taking Griffith pretty much everything he has to even be able to keep the boy in check and keep a hold of the body. And even if you think it's weird that I'm saying that Moonlight Boy overpowers the Beast of Darkness, it's not at all. In fact, he's done it many times. Not only that, but if you look at how he behaves around other astral beings, he has dominance over them. He has authority over them. He doesn't need to resist them. He just glares at them and they leave. This also leads me to believe that one of the things that's going to happen in the future Berserk series and the arcs that happen is that it's going to be revealed that by default, astral beings don't have an evil or a positive nature. They're by default neutral, meaning that it is the presence of the idea of evil and causality that actually makes certain astral beings evil. Like in the Enoch chapter, when it came to the Kelpies and the troll, troll, those beings were made aggressive by the presence of that that domain of sorts. When it came to, I can't remember what it's called. Hang on a second, I'm gonna Google it. Boy, I found the answer. Kilfoth? I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's the place where Slan was when it came time for Guts to go down into the caves and rescue all the women who were abducted by trolls. That place was effectively like a different astral. I want to say domain, but it's going to kind of sound weird when you think of it that way, because it's not actually a domain. It's more like it's present on the planet, but it's not actually a part of it. That's important because it actually ties into what I'm talking about as far as the actual beings. They went under the influence of the Quel'Thoth. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. They become malevolent. They become aggressive. They become controlled. And control is a huge part of that, because when it comes to actually looking at how Griffith, the apostles, and everything ended up behaving when it comes to astral beings, it's genocide. It's destroying, slaughter. It's destroying all of them. And when it comes to Moonlight Boy, whenever you see him interact with a very strong astral being, more often than not, he just scares them right off. Maybe scared's not the right word, but more so he has the ability to bring them back to being neutral, which allows them to just go off on their merry way. We saw this in the Pride of the Boat arc, where they're trying to head to Elfhelm. When Moonlight Boy encountered the pseudo-apostles, he ended up just staring at the crocodiles, and they ended up just leaving. There was no real explanation for it. It's just something Moonlight Boy can do. And that's why the Beast of Darkness did not show up during the Maelstrom, because Moonlight Boy was actively keeping it in check. If he attacks, if Guts uses the armor and attacks, he wouldn't just be risking Casca's life, his own life. It would be a situation where there's no way to win, and Moonlight Boy knows that, so he's trying to keep the Beast of Darkness in check so it doesn't end up actually coming out and Guts end up hurting himself even further. Because in actuality, the only one who can use the armor to its utmost potential is the boy. So, why would his son end up hinting at the armor in the first place, like wearing it, wanting to trade sword blows with his dad? It's because of the fact that I don't think Moonlight Boy actually has the ability to speak. It might be because he's young, it might be because of some kind of like shared consequence with Griffith, where his tortured body ended up becoming a Moonlight Boy's and he is not able to speak because of that. Or it might just be because he's young. But as far as like the ability to speak, he's been around physical human beings for a while, so he knows what language is. You've seen him travel along with Guts and Casca, and he's been around humans during that period of time. So surely he has exposure to language. There's something that I believe, honestly, is preventing him from speaking, which is where my theory that he shares the consequences of Griffith being tortured, a wonderful, ironic piece, by the way, with Griffith. And who ended up getting Griffith tortured again? That's right, Guts. And with that being said, also in the most recent chapter, the end of the Fantasia arc, nonetheless, Guts is seen lamenting over the fact that even with his sword, even with all of his power, he was still powerless in the pursuit of keeping Casca in his care. When he strikes at Griffith, the moment that he quote-unquote protects Casca, it's demoralizing to him, because even if he is able to reach Griffith, the fact is, he lost Casca in the entire events that took place. All of this has to do with the fact that Griffith knows that in order for Moonlight Boy to stop venturing out, this is his theory, he needs to have the boy with Casca. Otherwise, he's always going to end up going out and about when there's a full moon out, which causes a problem for Griffith, because in that instance, when he's asleep and Moonlight Boy has control, Griffith is vulnerable. It's the only little gap in the equation where Griffith is actually able to be struck. Not only is the power, which is Moonlight Boy's, by the way, the power to redirect and reflect attacks, and not only redirect them, but amplify them when they're redirected. That's Moonlight Boy. With that being said, not only does Griffith become vulnerable, but he loses the ability to become untouchable once Moonlight Boy ventures out. It's problematic for Griffith because if he's ever asleep and one of the apostles, say like the mask guy, wants to try and attack and strike down Griffith, it's in those moments that he is absolutely able to be, that's actually able to be done. So that ties us back to what I was talking about, and this is, I love making these videos, but I unfortunately don't have a ton of time to work with, so I'm going to end up doing these in parts. This will be part 1, of course. The reason why Moonlight Boy was hinting towards being put in the armor is because that's 1, he's the one able to fully utilize it. 2, he's able to control the Beast of Darkness, which is now tied to the suit thanks to Guts. And 3, and this is important, and it's where we're going to take up the next video. The Dragon Slayer exists on an astral plane, meaning that if you were to put Moonlight Boy inside the armor, kind of like Full Metal Alchemist with Al and Alphon and Edward, if you were to put the Moonlight Boy in the suit, the Berserker armor, not only would he be able to control it without any consequence, blood being lost, but he would also be able to wield on an astral plane the Dragon Slayer. This is something that Guts is not able to do unless, he dies. So in order for Griffith to actually be struck down, 1, you have to remove Moonlight Boy out of the equation by fixing him to the armor. 2, you have to give either Guts, unlikely, or Moonlight Boy the ability to wield the Dragon Slayer on an astral plane, where Griffith and the Godhand and the Apostles are most vulnerable. And 3, you also have to make sure that when it comes to Moonlight Boy, when the body is struck down, because it's his body, he has a vessel to still inhabit. Otherwise, when anything happens, then unfortunately, if anything happens with Griffith, down goes Moonlight Boy as well. And if you saw my video on wounds and Casca, you understand that that's going to break Casca beyond repair. There's no coming back from it. If Moonlight Boy ends up being killed by Guts, his own dad, that's going to destroy Casca. There is no amount of magic, no amount of counseling that's going to bring her back. That's why, once again, as I mentioned in the wounds video, the final fragment of what broke Casca in the first place was the loss of her child. She loses it again, there's no coming back. But I also would like to think, I've made this point a few times before, but very few individuals seem to really bite on it, and it might be because of the fact that it's just kind of out there. But it kind of ties into, the philosophy that's being practiced within Japan, that being Bushido, the art of the sword, or practice of the sword, and realizing how you can use that to not only know yourself, but also others as well. I bring this up because, and like Full Metal Alchemist, the sword is something that has to be sacrificed in order to truly get what one wants to attain. At least in Berserk and Full Metal Alchemist is where I believe that's going to be going. In Full Metal Alchemist, the only way Edward was able to get Alphon's body back, all of it, was sacrificing his ability to use alchemy, his sword, in other words. And with Guts, in order to move the story forward, I believe that, in all honesty, it's going to have to be sacrificed. By all accounts, and 370 revealed this to be completely accurate, and that's why I bring it up in this conjunction anyway. The most prized possession that Guts has in his everything, the most important possession to him is his sword. His ability to protect himself and be able to choose his own destiny. That's what the sword represents, especially in Bushido. If the sword can be marked, not only are you placing it more so in the astral realm, but you're creating, you know how Skull Knight said that Guts was a fish in water? The sword itself would then become like a fish in water, both existing paramountly so on the physical and astral plane. Not only does this mean that an individual person could end up wielding the Dragon Slayer if they were strong enough, but anything on the astral plane that would be capable of such would be able to wield the Dragon Slayer too. And in all honesty, nothing could stop this sword. Even the sword of actuation that Skull Knight has, wouldn't be able to deflect it, wouldn't be able to remove it, wouldn't be able to do anything. I'm going to close this video out on one concept. What happens if you take a branded Dragon Slayer, the Moonlight Boy, who has the ability to be untouchable, which means that any time you do try and attack him, it's reflected back at you at 3 times. I'm wagering. I'm just putting that number out there. I think it's 3 times. 3 times the force that it was attacked or used with. The Berserker armor. And an astral being that can negate the influence of causality or the idea of evil, therefore making an astral being return to neutral its original form, its original psyche, its original stance. What happens when you put all of those things together? Like father, like son seems appropriate here, because where Guts has gone through hell, his son has gone through worse. Put all those things together with that willpower, tenacity, and mind you, the Beast of Darkness under his control. You're talking about something that can slay the God Hand. And on that, closing the video out. Until next time, bye-bye.